Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. And we are, let's see if you can see it yet. No, you can now. And we are in the middle of the blessing, quote, quote, although the Torah itself calls these statements of Jacob, these prophecies, blessings. So we actually see an example here where his words can go either way, and he's saying pretty much the same thing, at least with regards to Shimon and Levi. So even though he takes each individual son and blesses them or has words to say about each one, when it comes to Shimon and Levi, he talks about them as brothers and he combines them in the statement he makes. And this is where we are right now. We're in the midst of this particular passage here. So, Arur Apam, cursed is their anger, ki az, for it is strong, ve'evratam, and their fury, ki kashata, for it is, well, kasher means hard, right? Achal came, so notice, by the way, the parallelism here. This is all part of the fact that we are into poetry here. Okay. Achal came, I will divide them up, Yaakov, in Jacob. And I believe he's talking about the land of Israel and in that regard. And to finish up the verse, Va'afitzem b'Yisrael, and I will scatter them in Israel. Again, this parallelism that you see here. And yet in the commentary, we are going to want to try and explain each little part of the parallelism. Excuse me one moment. Thank you. So let's take a look at the commentary here. So let's find the place here. Here we are. Arur apam ki az. Cursed is their anger, for it is strong. So the Rashi says, Afilu b'sha'at tochacha, even at the moment of correction, of reproof, lo kilel ela et apam. He only cursed their anger. He didn't curse them. He cursed their anger. V'zehu shamar Bilam. And we have a reference to this when Bilam, right, in the book of Numbers, said, Ma ekov, what shall I curse? Lo kava el, which God has not cursed. And I'm assuming here el can also mean powerful one. So that,
Rabbi,
yes.
They were defending their sister Diane.
Okay, there's defending and there's killing. Okay, and nobody's saying that there might not have been some justification in the fact that they were angry about what had happened, right? And they felt that her honor had been betrayed, but that didn't mean that they simply should take their swords and go and kill off the entire city of Shem. And the other piece also, Harlan, is in these situations, it doesn't justify wholesale killing. When a crime has been committed, what do? You have to prosecute the crime, and you have to go after it and discuss, all the circumstances, and you have to have witnesses, etc. There's a judicial process that is necessary if you're going to take severe action. So it's still, they reacted emotionally, it seems to be, Jacob is commenting. It's not the behavior wasn't justified. It was perhaps understandable, but that doesn't necessarily justify the process. So anyway, back to what Bilam was saying, that possibly it just occurred to me that when Bilam said lo kava el, even though in that context it means God, here it might be understood as the mighty one, referring to Jacob. But the point is that they themselves were not cursed. But there still was there was a consequence, right? There were consequences. Achal kem b'Yaakov. I will divide them up in Jacob. Afridem. I will separate zeh mizeh, the one from the other. In other words, Levi from Shimon. All right. Shelo yehe Levi b'minyan hashvatim. That the consequence was that Levi was not counted amongst the other tribes. And you've already seen that in the book of Numbers, how Levi was separated in its numbers. V'harei chalukim, and in this way they will be divided. Shimon and Levi will no longer be together. Davar acher, another interpretation. Ein lecha aniyim v'sofrim. You do not have, this is put negatively, but basically what it's saying is that you, even though it's rhetorical, that you have poor people, v'sofrim, scribes umelamdei tinokot. This would be teachers of very young children. Ela mishimon. They all came from the tribe of Shimon. So Shimon was known as being this tribe of people who were scribes and also elementary teachers. And they were poor. Okay, they didn't make great salaries. I guess there's a tradition somehow out there. Kedei sheyehu nifutzim. And the consequence was that they had to wander around in order to eke out a livelihood. So that's how this particular, again, statement of Jacob's was actually implemented. V'shivtosha Levi, and as to the tribe of Levi, and by the way, I do need to go back and say that being a sofer and a melamed tinok is not a bad thing. Okay, it's not dishonorable. It's actually extremely honorable. It's just that you don't make much of a salary based on these kinds of positions, right? But the point is that they had to go around in order to make a livelihood. And this is specifically here where they didn't have necessarily schools organized in the way that we do now. V'shivto Levi, and as to the tribe of Levi, As'u Mechazer, he had to go around. So the Levites had to go around al hagronot. They had to go around to the granaries, to the threshing floors, letrumot, in order to pick up their gifts. Ulama'asrot, you know what a truma is? We've discussed that before. The truma was a specific part of tithing that went to the priests, ulama'asrot, and tithes, and the Levites did in fact receive the tithes, but they had to go and request it. They had to go to the various farmers and see about receiving it. So that again is sort of scattering them around Israel. And of course, we know that they only got cities, Levitical cities, and so they didn't have large fields in which to plant grain or trees or orchards, etc. Okay. However, L'trumot u'lemasrot natan lo tfutzato. So he's saying that when it came to his saying that Jacob said to him, you're going to be scattered around, you're going to afit same, right? You're going to have to scatter around derech tal kavod. This, however, was extremely honorable that they were given this particular gift of the tithes, etc. So we see a distinction between Shimon and Levi, that Levi was given a high level, actually, a great honor in being separated from the rest of the tribes. On the other hand, Shimon had negative consequences, more negative consequences than Levi. But what's also interesting is that, you know, from this curse, quote, quote, that Jacob gives them, nevertheless, the tribe of Levi actually gained honor. And that is, of course, because they were loyal to God when the rest of the Israelites were worshiping the golden calf. And so they were given this particular honor, which I think the takeaway is that, you know, you have to see, do you want to, when you're in a negative situation like this, is it possible to redeem yourself? And I think Levi essentially did redeem themselves. Going on. So this is a note. This is a note. It's obviously it's not in the Torah. It says Baruch Amud. This is at the top of a column. Yud. Okay. So this is there are 6 columns in the Torah that have most columns in the Torah, or should I say every column in the Torah starts with a letter Vav. However, there are 6 columns that start with another letter and not the letter Vav. You have the very first column of the Torah that starts with the word Bereshit. So the first letter of that column is a Bet. And this is the second column that has a different letter and not the letter Vav. And this is Yehuda. So if you look at a Sefer Torah, you will always see that this particular verse is at the top of a column of the Torah. And there's here are other the other letters that begin columns, except of course every column begins with the letter Vav. Okay. So, and there's a verse that says Biyah Shmo, through Hashem, his name. The whole verse goes Tzur Olamim, I believe it's from Psalms, who founded the rock of the universe. So that buried within the Torah itself, in the way it's set up, is the idea that God is the rock of the universe, and that the Torah, in expressing the divine relationship to the universe, is also, in a way, right, an expression of this, the way in which God is rock of the universe.
So why doesn't it say Sur Olam?
Oh, because there aren't additional. This is just the 6 letters. It's just
No.
Oh, Olamim?
You said Sur
Right.
Olamim.
Good. Okay, thanks. I misunderstood your question, Lauren. I think that's because there's both the physical universe and the spiritual universe. That would be my attempt to answer your question. Just like Chaim is plural, okay, and the idea that there is actually an afterlife as well. And so I think that's why it's Olamim, and not just in the singular. In other words, it also has to do with the fact that the universe, in this sense, is infinite, or to try and express the infinity of the universe. That's at least how I would understand it without, doing further research into it. Yehuda, Judah. And so notice he is saying to Judah, he's addressing Judah, Ata yoducha achecha. Your brothers will acknowledge you. So here he is. This is a little bit different when he's talking about Reuven, although I think with Reuven, he's also addressing Reuven. We can go all the way back to there. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, so he also is addressing Reuven here. And then, of course, that's where he's just starting. And then here he talks about Shimon and Levi, our brothers. So they're not being addressed necessarily directly. He's speaking about them, third person, and now he goes back to the second person to addressing Yehuda. And let's take a look at the Rashi. Yehuda, Judah, Ata yoducha achicha. That's of course the verse. Your brothers will acknowledge. And Rashi explains why this moves back to the second person. That's what Rashi's trying to address here, is that since Shimon and Levi were when the third person, why is he going back? Why is Jacob going back, or the text going back to second person? Lefi shehochiach et harishonim. The reason is that he had corrected the first 3, the kantorim, with chiding words. And clearly they're listening to this and it's not sounding like it's real complimentary, right? Judah began to move backwards. He began to turn backwards. And there's a little explanation here. Why? Shelo yochichenu al maaseh Tamar. He was worried that Jacob was going to correct him, since clearly up to this point, Jacob had been bringing up past misdeeds. He was concerned that he would correct him regarding the incident with Tamar. Ukra'o Yaakov. And so Jacob called out to him, b'divrei ratzoi, in an appeasing, with words of appeasement. Yehuda, Judah, lo ata kamotam. Judah, you are not like them. And this is from Bereshit Rabbah. Yadcha ba'orech oivecha. So this is let's see here. Let's make sure. Yeah. I don't know if I translated that. I don't know that I did.
I
Right?
don't think you finished the verse.
Right. Thanks. Your hand is on the nape of your enemies. So control, right? Yishtachavu lacha b'nei avicha. The sons of your father will bow down to you, will prostrate themselves to you. So, so your hand is on the nape of your enemies. And Rashi's saying, Bimei David, that Jacob was making reference, he's prophesying regarding the days of David. And because we find in the second book of Samuel, which is where we find the stories of David's life as a king, chapter 22, for Oivai Tachat Li Orech. There's a song of victory that David has composed that's there, and it says, my enemies will give their napes, their back of their necks to me. In other words, I have control over them. So they turn their backs to me, and now my hand, they can't, which makes them less effective in trying to hurt me, and I can control them. B'nei Avicha, right? So why does he say the sons of your father? Very often he refers to B'nei Imecha, the sons of your mother. So why does he say sons of your father here? Al Shem Shahayu Minashim Harbe, because his brothers came from another of, well, literally it means many women, of course. Jacob wound up with 4 wives, right? Lo Amar B'nei Imecha, that's why he didn't say the sons of your mother. Kederech Sha'amar Yitzchak, the way Isaac said when Isaac gave his blessings to Esau and to Jacob, he said, B'nei Imecha, your wife, your mother, excuse me. Gur Aryeh Yehuda, Judah is a lion's whelp. Miteref B'ni Alita, you arose, my son, from the prey. Kara, bow down. Ravatz Ka'aryeh, he couched like a lion. Ukelavi, and like a young lion. Mi Yekimenu, who will raise him up. Now, generally, I've seen Lavi as meaning a young lion. I'm not sure that it's understood that way here. It may mean sort of a powerful lion. So Gur Aryeh. So why is he referring to Judah as this lion's whelp? Al David Nitnabe. Okay, and this was again a prophecy regarding King David. But Chila Gur, because at the beginning he was young. When he was a young, powerful young man. Beheyot Shaul Melech Alav. King Saul was the king over him. Ata Hamotzi v'Hamevi et Yisrael, and under King Saul, he brought out and brought in the Israel, meaning in control of the troops. Okay, so he was a general for King Saul. But in the end, Aryeh, at that point, he was a lion, a fully grown lion. Shehem lichuhu alehem, because the Israelites at that point made him king. They crowned him over them. Vezehu shetirgem Onkelos, and we see in the Onkelos translation here a reflection of what Rashi's just told us. And the quotation, Shilton Yehe Bishruya, and so you will, okay. I'm looking at how we understand it. You deserved rulership, okay, or office, betchilato, at the beginning. So let's take a look at the actual. Let me see. Here it is. Shilton yehe b'sheruya. You will be ruler at first. Uvesofa yitraba malka. And in the end, you will be your dominion, your kingship, your monarchy will be great. Let's take a look here. Yeah. Let's go. Miteref, here we go. Miteref, from the prey, right? Mima shechashadaticha. This is from what I suspected you. Again, Jacob addressing Judah. Bitarof, because he uses, look at this sort of literary analysis here going on, because Jacob was told by the brothers, Tarof Toraf Yosef. Joseph is certainly in pieces, literally. Chaya ra'a achalat ho, evil beast has consumed him. V'zehu, so this is actually, these were Jacob's words, and they're understood here as Zehu Yehuda, that evil beast is actually Judah. Understood, Jacob is sort of implying Judah is the one here. Shenim Shal Aryeh, because he's compared to a lion. So here we have words, Tarof Toraf Yosef. This is Jacob's stating this, that whole statement here. And Rashi's explaining that when Jacob was saying that, it's because he was suspicious that Judah was involved in this. B'ni Alita, my son, you have come up. Salakta et atzmacha, you removed yourself. Amarta ma betzad. So remember, the brothers had wanted to kill Joseph, and Judah was the one who changed their minds, who disagreed with that decision, and argued with them that they should sell Joseph instead. V'chein b'harigat Tamar, and likewise when they were ready to kill Tamar, remember in that story, Shehodeh, that he confessed. Judah admitted, Tzadka mimeni. He said publicly, she is more righteous than I am. And of course, they let her go. And the story is that ultimately she became his wife. But anyway, the fact that he was able to admit what he'd done wrong, and he's ready to do it in public, rather than have her killed at that particular point. And for this reason, because he shows such strength of character, right? Kara, Ravatz, etc. He bows down, kneels down. He couches like a lion, and he explains. Rashi explains, Bimei Shlomo. This would have been during the days of King Solomon, because in Kings 1, that's this reference here, chapter 5, Ish tachat gafno. So it says that every man, I believe the whole verse would say, would be able to live under his vine, gafno, his vine, and under his fig tree. And I think that's understood to mean that people are living lives of peace and prosperity, etc., etc. And that's that reference, that explanation of this particular poetic statement. So we'll stop here, and God willing, we'll pick this up next year. Oh, sorry, stop the share. Okay. So as I said, this is thick material. It's dense, and again, we're into the forest here, and the question, of course, becomes how do we sort of look at this from an overview perspective? We do have the parallel when Moses blesses the tribes at the end, right at the end of Deuteronomy. There's that parallel. And I would say superficially, it's saying that there is accountability for one's life. That's essentially, I think, the major takeaway that you see from reading this. Hi, Lee. So any other comments before yeah, David.
Have to get off mute. So earlier on we talk about, God as the rock of the universe. So that was a point in one of the passages. I guess maybe we've gone over this before, but what is the or multiple meanings of the rock? Why a rock? Why chosen as a rock? And what significance or multiple maybe multiple significance does that really have? So that was my question. Yeah.
Okay, so let me first of all clarify. That is not in the text, right? It's implied. It's simply the fact that you have these 6 letters that are the beginnings of columns of the Torah. Okay, so it's not that verse is stated in the book of Psalms. It's not in the Torah itself, but that's just aside, just to clarify that even though we saw it in the text there, it's like an editorial little mark there. It's like a Masoretic comment. Okay, as far as the main question, which is, what's understood by rock. So you think about a rock. A rock is solid, right? It is something you could stand on. You're crossing a stream, you're crossing a river, and very often you have rocks on which you can cross the river safely on. And I think the idea is that God is a refuge, safety for us, that God can be relied on. And I think and also the idea of foundation, all those sorts of things are sort of bound up in describing God as rock of the universe. In other words, if you ask yourself, what can you really rely on? You can't rely on other human beings. Human beings come and go. Human beings are emotional. Human beings are changeable. Almost everything in the world, if not everything in the world. We even have earthquakes, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to God, that is our ultimate source of security. So I think if I were to take one word, I would say security.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking foundation. I was also thinking immovable. You can't move. It's very hard sometimes to move a rock. So it provides. Yeah. So okay, that helps. Thank you very much.
Right, that you can rely on God. That it's
And I
not.
think in Isaiah it says enduring, but enduring can imply all of the above or all of the below.
Yes. No, Lauren, I think that's another word that you can absolutely associate with rock, for sure. Well, Shabbat Shalom, and keep safe. And in some cases, dry, if you can. All right.